Question 34, compare. Now, whenever it says compare like this, what we're trying to do is see which one is bigger. So if 4/12 on the left-hand side is bigger, we're going to have a crocodile's mouth or an inequality sign to give it its correct name, with the mouth pointing towards the left-hand side if the left-hand side is bigger. If the right-hand side, the 1/4, is bigger, we're going to have that same sign flipped over so that the crocodile's mouth is pointing towards the 1/4, the right-hand side. If they are both equal, we're going to put an equal sign. Now, what we cannot do is we cannot just say, well, 4 and 12 are both bigger than 1 and 4, therefore this side is bigger. You can't just say that. It might be right, but if it is right, we're just guessing. What we need to do is get a common denominator, and that won't always be right, what we've just done there. So the right way to do it is get the common denominator to make it a fair comparison. So by common denominator, what we're going to do is we're going to try and make this 4 into 12. To make the 4 into 12, you need to make it 3 times bigger. 4 times 3 is 12. So now we're dealing with 12ths on this side. So if we're making the bottom number 3 times bigger, we're making the top number 3 times bigger. 1 times 3 is 3. 3/12. So once you've made the equivalent fraction, you don't need the original fraction anymore, so you can just cross that out. So we've made 1/4 into an equivalent fraction of 3/12. Now, what we can see now is that it's now a fair comparison. We've got 4/12 versus 3/12. And 4/12 is obviously bigger than 3/12. So the inequality sign has to point towards the 4/12. The bigger side of the sign, points towards the biggest side. Some people always say that the crocodile's always hungry, so the crocodile's mouth opens towards the biggest side because he's hungry. So 4/12 is bigger than 3/12. Now you might say, well, that was obvious. We knew that the 4/12 was going to be bigger, but as we've just said, we can't say just because of the numbers, because we could have easily changed the question to this. If the question had been 4/12 versus a half, then what you can't do is say 4 and 12 are both bigger than 1 and 2, so 4/12 is bigger. Because in actual fact, with that one, it would have been the sign would have been the other way around. Because if you're changing a half into 12ths, get from 2 to 12, it's times 6. So you need to do 1 times 6. That would have actually been 6/12. And 6/12 is obviously going to be bigger than 4/12. So in that case, the crocodile's mouth, the inequality sign, would have been facing towards the 6/12 to indicate that 6/12 is bigger. So you can't just guess with questions like this just by looking at the numbers. You need to make sure you've got a common denominator to make sure it's a fair comparison.